He is an American short story writer, poet, critic, and editor who was born in Boston. And since then, he began his career as a writer. Next, I'm going to list some of his famous works. So the first one is the Tamala and Other Poets.
After being refused by Lady Bracknell, Jake plans to kill old Ernest. After killing old Ernest, Jake returns to the manor house, dressed in mourning. He explains that his brother Ernest died of a severe chill.
Now I'm going to talk about our theme and our questions. After reading this play, my main verse and I agree that Algernon has a special perspective on marriage. Also, Dr. Trashbow's utterance about marriage is kind of confusing. Therefore, we choose marriage as our theme. Our first question is about how marriage is viewed in the play. Is it romantic or not? We thought of this question after reading Algernon's lines about proposal and marriage. According to Algernon's lines, the very essence of romance is uncertainty. On the other hand, marriage is not romantic because it is a settlement, it is a certainty. We suppose that marriage is not strongly related to romance in the play. We used the correlation tool to analyze the correlation between romance and other words. We found that romance has a correlation with engaged and married. Next, we used the trend tool to analyze their correlation. We can see that the trend of romance and marriage basically has a positive correlation. Let's look at the trend of these two words in each act. In Act 1, marriage is mentioned several times while romance is just a few times. So except for the segment 1, the trend of romance and marriage have a weak correlation. To sum up, marriage has a correlation with romance, and the correlation is basically positive. So it is possible that only Algernon sees no romance in marriage. Other characters may have the opposite opinions. As for the low frequency of romance mentioned in the play, we can assume that romance is not an important factor in marriage to most of the characters.
Now this is the question of our analysis. There will be 3 questions in total. First, what does the word earnest represent in marriage in this play?
The question is, what does the word earnest represent in marriage in the play? And we made a hypothesis that the pronunciation of the word earnest is similar to the name Ernest. So the name may be used to satire the character's attitude toward marriage. And let's see what we found by using tools. The first tool we use volumes. From this figure, we can see that the frequency of Mary and Ernest overlap significantly in Act 1 and Act 3. Therefore, we choose some words that are related to marriage to see how they connect to Ernest. We use words here, and the first keyword is romantic. From this figure, we can see that the character were only serious about romantic feelings. They think the proposal, which is not romantic, is not necessary. Therefore, we can assume that they focus on the sensation instead of the importance of the proposal to marriage. From the text, we can see that as soon as Gwendolyn heard the name, she fell in love with the dual identity the same as Cicely. The reason for their coming for marriage is ridiculous. These characters focus on the appearance of the name and neglect the meaning of the name Ernest, which create a paradox. Every time the characters mention the name Ernest will make the whole story become more ironic. After we know the information about names, we want to know what the actual influence of the name to the character's life. So we come up with the third question.
Here is our question, and we're gonna use tool to analyze them. First of all, the narrator emphasized that he wasn't crazy at the first time, but before we read the text, how can we predict it? And how can we know if his words are reliable or not? Does this share anything in common with the yellow wallpaper? Because we think both of the story and narrator are going insane eventually, so we have analyzed how frequency is I in the text. Then the last question is that does it share anything in common with the yellow wallpaper? Again, we go back to the plot and see the comparison with between the two texts. Again, we click the biggest block and we can see that in the yellow wallpaper, the narrator said the word I most frequently when she was convinced her husband to stay with her and when she was attached to the creepy woman. The narrator mentioned a lot of her thoughts with the word I when she was talking to her husband and when she was observing the woman in the yellow wallpaper. In addition, we can see some commonalities between the two texts. The word I is the most used word in the two texts and see the cluster of the word I. Both narrators claim that they could see something or they did not do something. In conclusion, both the narrators say the word I frequently when they are nervous, anxious, and excited, and trying to calm down by self-talking. So we tend to believe that the narrator's words are not exactly reliable.
For the future, if the word is on the internet, we can transfer it into the text file. We would like to use this kind of innovative tool to do a quick analyze, and then we just have more time to do a discussion.
In the past, we have to read the whole text to get the outline, but since we learned these technology tools, we can get the outline faster and clearer when reading long stories. Therefore, it is necessary to learn these skills to make our lives easier.
Your questions need to be broader or more specific in a way, but then you cannot have you can have hypothesis. You kind of guess maybe the answer is like this, and then you search multiple things in the tool to see whether your hypothesis is confirmed. That's how it should work.
Why would you want to search Tasty reluctantly left stones for the first question? How did you pick the 4 terms you searched?
The last word to say them on the word here, and we think maybe they represent the attitudes, villagers' attitudes towards the lottery. So we choose the words and we find the answer.
Okay, good strategy. Okay.
We said consider this text, but comparing it to another text, we looked at is brilliant. Okay, we're saying, okay, well, if he's obsessed with himself, let's see if the evidence shows. And oh, hold on, is that the same with the yellow wallpaper? And you look at it, you find a little block, and then that corresponds to the part of the story. It all makes sense, and it's, you're finding that out as you go.